Hello and welcome back to Slow Pit Stop. We are back after a little break. We didn't get to talk to you guys about the Emilia Romagna Imola Senna Grand Prix 2 weeks ago, but we're here. We both watched Miami. We're very excited, and we have with us an incredible guest. You might recognize her she was on last season. A W Series driver now, Bianca Bustamante from the Philippines. We're all very excited. How are you doing, Bianca?
I'm doing amazing. I'm in Indianapolis right now. Actually, I just finished the Miami weekend, and it was amazing. I can't believe I witnessed all of it in front of my own eyes.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't remember Bianca from last season, Bianca is was a karting driver from the Philippines. She was a little bit of a racing prodigy, a three-time karting driver of the year, two-time Asian Junior Karting Open champion, and a four-time China Grand Prix kart scholarship winner. So she was with us last time because she was testing for a Formula 4 car getting ready to test in France. But then life kind of took a little bit of a turn, and now she's a W Series driver in a Formula 3 car. Bianca, what happened between the last time you spoke to us and you coming to Miami and driving as a W Series driver?
A lot has happened, that's for sure. As everyone knows, I kind of bursted out as being one of the few people that was selected for the Girls on Track Harvey Drivers Academy for the shootout. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to continue in that path in my career. you know. But it doesn't mean that I was rejected, only because I was redirected for something else, which is with the W
Mm-hmm.
Series. And it's amazing that I got this opportunity to be able to be racing with them for not only a year, but for 2 years. And I'm really happy with how things turned out. And it taught me a lot of lessons. And now we're here.
What was your reaction when you got the call that you had been successful in your other tests after the Formula 4 thing and that you were actually going to be driving for W Series?
Yeah, so I got a call that they were inviting me over to Arizona for a shootout. Nothing
Mm-hmm.
permanent. Just to see how you are, how you drive, and how well you work with a team. And I went there with little to no experience. I've only been driving the F4 car, for about a day or two. So I was the least experienced driver in that shootout, and immediately I felt like so much pressure because I don't know what I was doing, to be honest. Like seeing all those girls, they've had such like vast experience. They've been racing Formula 3, F4, and I came straight out of karting. So that was a bit difficult for me to, to progress and to show confidence, but it turned out perfectly amazing. And I came out as one of the fastest drivers from that shootout, and I was invited over to Barcelona for the preseason test with the W Series, and yet another obstacle that I had to overcome because this time around we were driving the Formula 3 car, which I've never driven before. So
Hmm.
it was definitely another tough part.
Bianca, it's Arafat here. I just wanted to ask, what's your training been like? Mohammed and I were joking just before we started recording that, even now you're at the gym and I'm sat here eating ice cream and Mohammed is lying in bed and you're working so hard. You're in the gym right now. So how has your training changed since moving from karts to W Series this year?
That's the thing, like coming out from karting, I realized that there's a lot more to it than just driving around. And I'm here actually in Pit Fit in Indianapolis, where most indie drivers train. They've taught me a lot and how to work on my muscles. There's different type of muscles that performs really well while driving, and now I'm learning every each and of those, and I'm doing a lot better. I'm working out a lot, doing the right things, working out the right stuff, doing lots of neurocognitive training as well to work on my reaction, my peripheral vision, and everything that requires to be a racing driver, which was something that was so not new to me. And so it's tough. It's honestly so tough. Like living the life of of a racing driver, it's not easy.
Speaking of Indianapolis, you also signed to race with Racing Team Indy, the first step to the Indy Series, the USF. I believe it's called. It's like the first step before Indy Lights. I apologize, I can't
USF
remember the name of
juniors,
it.
yes.
USF Juniors, and you just raced with them a week or a week and a half before Miami. So, but those are Formula 4 cars. So, how is that different
Yes.
to racing in Miami?
I've had the craziest 3 weeks of my life.
Yeah.
I experienced my very first race weekend 2 weeks
Mm-hmm.
ago, and then the following race weekend I had another round with the USF Juniors, and then after that I went straight to Miami. So I had
Mm-hmm.
3 back-to-back race weekends. So that was
Wow.
extremely fun. I experienced like so many new things, especially with the USF Juniors. I was driving a Formula 4 car, and we were doing
Mm-hmm.
a rolling start compared to the standing start that
Uh,
normally is done in the FIA races. So I had to learn so many things in such a short amount of time. And at first, I was like so overwhelmed that I have no idea what I'm gonna do. It's like the first thing
yeah.
that came into my mind when I sat in that car. I was like, man, what am I gonna do? But in the
Yeah.
end, I got the hang of it. I
Mm-hmm.
learned a lot. I listened to my coaches and everyone that was helping me out. They were teaching me how to do this and that. So, and then like for me, USF Juniors was sort of like a training ground in preparation for Miami. So when Miami came, it was a whole new level. I was just stunned by like the competitiveness that I was experiencing. Like
Yeah.
I went there and I saw Jamie Chadwick, Alice Powell,
Mm-hmm.
and then we all drove together. Went out for my first session, and mind this, that Miami was a street track, so racing an
Yeah.
FD car in a street circuit was definitely a bit too difficult. it
Yeah.
wasn't it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy
Yeah.
getting up to speed, trusting the car, driving so close to the wall. Like it's an
Mm-hmm.
amazing feeling, but it's a lot to learn.
But I
That's
mean,
amazing.
you handled it really well because going into the race, you know, something that I didn't realize, but I was listening to the commentary on Sky Sports for the race one, and Naomi Schiff was saying that, oh, these cars are tricky to handle, they're not easy, the clutch is a little finicky, and right on that start, you saw Nuria Marti, who was on pole position, just failed to get off the line. Two other drivers failed to get off the line, but you had a great start, and I'm really surprised hearing that you didn't get to practice that in
No.
your Indy race. Yeah, but you had an incredible start, and you sent it into turn one. You're the last of the late breakers. You're the Daniel Ricciardo of W Series. You passed three other people. You went up 4 positions. It was really great. So how? Okay, talk me through that start, and really in both races, because that you pulled the same move off, back to back. Is that something you had practiced before? Is that just your normal karting style that you've now
That,
brought to Formula 3?
that's actually one of like I love talking about it because it was such a roller coaster weekend for us.
Yeah.
So during practice, after a session, we were supposed to do a practice start. So we would line
Mm-hmm.
up in the grid, do a standing start. But unfortunately, we weren't able to do that due to a red flag. So we were sent back to the pits, and they canceled our practice starts. So I came into that race one with zero knowledge on how to even
Mm-hmm.
do it. Like I went there, and my race engineer was on the radio with me, telling me what to do, stay calm, and all of that. But
Mm-hmm.
even though that there's someone guiding you through it, it's such a weird experience
Mm-hmm.
having to do it for the first time on your all on your own. Like it's a race, so
Yeah.
obviously stalling is the worst thing that can ever happen to
Yeah.
you. And in my head, I was just thinking, "Don't stall, don't stall, don't stall,"
Yeah.
and I was like just panicking. I was so nervous because I didn't want to be
Yeah.
embarrassed. Like there were so many people watching, and stalling is one of the like heartbreaking moments in
Yeah.
Yeah.
racing. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna calm down. I'm gonna think through my head what I'm gonna do. Make sure that I
Mm-hmm.
heat my tires up really good during the opening lap. I mean
Mm-hmm.
the formation lap. Make sure I warm it up so I have very
Mm-hmm.
good grip and I won't wheel spin. And just a lot of preparation, a lot of talking to myself, calming myself down, and then when we got to the last corners, I did a few burnouts, make sure
Mm-hmm.
my tire was really warm. I made it
Mm-hmm.
to my grid position, and then there's this moment once you're all just lined up where like everything goes silent and you can't
Yeah.
hear anything. There's like the engine
Yeah.
is quiet, the lights are all red, and it's just like a
Mm-hmm.
moment where you just panic so much because you're not doing anything. You're just sitting there waiting, 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 and like
Yeah.
anticipating for everything that can possibly happen. So I was just like saying, don't overthink it, just drive. and so when the lights started, like it goes from 1, 2, 3, and then lights off.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, do I like push, like, do I initiate like the throttle now, or do I do this, or do I do that? And then so when I got there, I just, I slammed the gas full throttle. And then they told me that I shouldn't be holding on to the clutch for too long because the clutch of
Mm-hmm.
this car is not amazing. That's one of the
Mm-hmm.
reasons that Neria Marti and the other W Series drivers stalled, was because they were trying to get to the biting point of the clutch, and
Mm-hmm.
then their engines died, unfortunately, because of that, because the clutch is not very good with the car. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, I just dumped it, just slammed it. I was like, I don't care. I'm just gonna go head on. I'm just gonna like rail it. I don't care, just because it
Yeah.
was my first time. So I dumped it, and then surprisingly, I was very good. My start was really good, because like after the race, we could get to compare the reaction time,
Mm-hmm.
or of the release of the clutch, and I was one of the best. I had one of
Wow.
the best starts in the grids, when
Mm-hmm.
we looked through the data. So I was really impressed. I was like, "Oh wow, it's honestly such a great feeling that
Yeah.
I was able to do my first ever start, successfully." And
Yeah.
there's like, and I guess one of the things that helped me was trying to stay calm, and mentally in my head I was just
Mm-hmm.
thinking that I'm sort of like a spring being compressed, and then
Mm-hmm.
when the lights turned off, I can just let go and release everything. And that's sort
Yeah.
of what happened. That's why I had such a fun start.
Where is the clutch? Is it a hand pedal or is it a foot one?
It's a foot pedal. It's the clutch is on the left side of the pedal. So we don't
Yeah.
have the one that Formula One has.
And your shifting, is it paddles or is it a stick as well?
Yes, it's paddle.
Right.
Paddle shift, yes.
That's cool.
Well.
I'm the bit that I love about this is, you were talking about the start there and the clutch and stuff like that. And Mohammed is American, so the idea of a
Oh
manual or a stick shift
no.
car. So
Yeah, I
when
literally
Mohammed,
don't know what a clutch
yeah,
is. It's like a purse, right? A clutch is a purse.
so when Mohammed visited the UK, I let him drive my car, and it was interesting
Ah.
watching him trying to find the bite point.
Yeah, I don't think I got the car out of first gear. I just stalled it
No,
and stalled it.
yeah,
So,
Oh gosh, it's all right. First for
but
everything.
now, like since I've been like really competitively watching Formula One, anytime I'm at a red light and it hits green, I always imagine I'm at the start of like a race, and I'm like, oh, there you go, and I slam the gas. So it's really fun to hear you do it for real and have that experience in real life. But I want
It
to ask
was
you
fun,
about turn
but
one.
it's so nerve wracking.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely get that. But you had the great start, and you can even see it on the start replay that you had a
yeah.
really good start. You're ahead of your teammate, and then just into turn one. Is that what you always do? Is you're the last person to break, and that's your opening move, or is that you just got lucky? Like what happened there?
I like I want to say that, oh, I already planned that in my head that I was going to break late
Yeah.
and overtake someone, but to be honest, no. I'm going to be really honest. Everything that I did, I just pulled it right out of my pocket. I was like, "Oh god. Oh gosh." So
Yeah.
I was trying to plan it before the race, but when the lights turned off, everything just like was out of the window. I was like, okay, I'll just do
Yeah.
whatever that looks good and I can overtake. And apparently, that was one of the things that was very successful. I braked in really late and I managed to pull a move and overtake a few people.
Well, I mean
It's
that
great
wasn't just.
because I was going to say it's great because in both races you were moving forwards, and obviously so much hard work goes into it. But at that moment, like you're saying, that hard work translates into talent, and you could see that on the screen.
Yeah, and I think that move, because you did it twice, you did it in both race starts. That move is probably like one of the best, if not the best move in the race, because nobody else managed to do something brave like that throughout the race. And I wasn't sure if it was because it was the cars or if it was the track, but it was good to see that there's some really good, really brave moves being done. And I was happy to see that it was you that was driving the car. I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna ask her about this when I get her on the podcast because that is really exciting. But talking about looking at the rest of the race, it is a street track, but it's also there are some runoff areas, so it's like a hybrid. street track, normal track. What did you think of the actual track? This is the first time anyone was racing in Miami.
It was just phenomenal. Like, there was a lot of saying about a track like this and that, but the track was amazing to drive. It was one of the best feelings ever. Like, there's like a very slow corner, and after it was like a long straight, and you were going in so fast, and there's like sort of this feeling where you're driving a street circuit where it's like a tunnel vision, where all you see is walls. Like, you're just going straight, and everything is like driving through muscle memory. You don't really know where the runoff is. You don't really know where the, like, you just turn and hope to, like, and pray that you don't hit a wall. It's sort of like that feeling. It's like so close to, like, it's always just so close, and the littlest movements or error or mistake can cause a big damage, Like, during the race, at the start of race 1, the very first red flag was because of Alice Powell. She miscalculated a corner and went to the wall. And that really shows that even the most experienced drivers do make mistakes. And especially in a track like this where it's not forgiving. And that's just how it is. Like, for me, I learned that from the official practice, where I miscalculated my brakes and didn't slow the car down enough, and I overshot it through the exit, and it cost me a spin. Thankfully, I was lucky enough to get away without any damage. I didn't hit the wall, but some of us weren't as lucky. There was a lot of red flags during the race, and that really just shows how really smooth, consistent driver you must be to be quick in a street track.
After the Formula One race, I saw an interview with George Russell, and he said something about the Miami track is, even though it's dry, it's as if you're driving on the wet, because you have to stay in this perfect line. Even if you move 1 inch to the side, all the grip is gone suddenly. And watching your race, I was just sat at home watching it, and I was like becoming stressed with all these yellow flags and red flags and safety cars. I don't know, how are you managing to psychologically cope with that when you were there?
Oh my gosh. You guys are like, oh my gosh. It's because it was my first race, so like all the other girls, they knew what to do. They knew what to, like, during a red flag or during we had to do a race restart under a safety car, like a safety car restart. Like, I've seen it a million times during F1, but experiencing it like on your own for the first time, it was just like so nerve-wracking. Oh boy. And it's just like, everything happened during that race. We had a red flag, we had a safety car, we had double yellows, we had everything. You could, like, everything that could go wrong went wrong. So for me, I was just like panicking, because like I just didn't know what to do. Like, especially during the safety car restart, they were telling me, oh, the safety car is gonna go in on this lap, and then there is a starting line, and you're not allowed to pass, stuff like that. And for me, like, because we get to talk to our engineer, and I was like telling my engineer, what am I gonna do? What do you mean? It's like, oh my gosh. I was like, oh no. But in the end, I guess it really shows, like what you said, when everything goes out the window, talent comes in. And I guess even though I had zero clue what I was doing, I managed to pull it off, just because. I
like how you keep saying you had zero clue what you were doing. You were totally panicked, and you came away with points. You scored points on your first ever race.
Yeah,
that's huge.
It's just because that's, to be honest, like I would try to be confident and be like, oh, I got it. I had it under my belt. I knew what I was doing. But I did not. It was, but it was fun, because not everyone gets to experience doing a standing start, like driving under a safety car, and it was a lot of learning. And I'm grateful now that I experienced it already, so that it prepares me for the rest of the season. That I know what to do, I know where to improve on, especially during the safety car, like. You would see all these drivers weaving, like warming up their tires, making sure it's all clean, and I was just like, should I do that too? should I also weave around and keep my tires clean? So I just copied what they were doing, and I did it.
Excellent.
That's funny. So you've got this 2-year contract with W Series in the Academy team. And so what are you hoping to gain out of this first year? Are you trying to, make your mark, get into
World
this
champion.
championship world champion in your first season? Are you trying to learn the car? Because, like Lewis Hamilton, for example, he said that when he was in the junior series, he said, I give myself 1 year to learn the car, 1 year to win the championship. So that was like the strategy he took. What are you trying to gain out of your time in the academy?
I mean, that's the goal. Like, that's why I was extremely grateful that the W Series and the whole team saw so much potential in me that they put me in the academy, knowing that next year will be my time to, really get it and start, competing for hopefully a world championship. But yeah, so this year it's all about learning. I only have about 3 days of experience in the Formula 3 car, and that's a lot less compared to all the other girls that has done 5 years or even 8. So I'm definitely trying to learning the car, learning its fundamentals, also learning the engineering side of it, because I realize that knowing the car really well from the engineering point of view helps a lot, especially with all those like clutch, the shifting, and it's like those little things that can make a really big difference. And learning, gaining experience, and I guess this year I had a lot of my first standing start, first race, first overtake, first safety car, and I'm trying to, of course, improve on those little details of trying to win a race. I experienced my very first 30-minute race run, and that was one of the toughest 30 minutes of my life. And it was so tough because I just didn't know how to pace myself. Never having driven that long for that long amount of time, you don't really know how to pace yourself on speed or your strength. Like you would hear a lot of drivers during their on the radio, their engineer telling them, oh, to coast, save the tires, or to slow down a little. And for me, I just didn't know, and so I ended up kind of towards the end getting a bit tired, and then I realized, oh, I didn't save my tires and all that stuff. So tire management, that's a whole other level of things you need to learn, because it can ruin your race. And at one point it did ruin mine a little, especially when I got a flat spot during race 2, and that was one of the reasons why I couldn't progress up. So that's another thing for me to understand and learn how to manage a flat spot, how to avoid a flat spot. So it's all good. It's all learning.
Yeah, well, you were hit from behind, so I wouldn't say it was your fault 100%. But yeah, certainly. But yeah, incredible weekend, and so you go to Barcelona next. Is that correct? Or
yes,
right. And then what else is on the list this year for W Series? I know you'll be in Austin at a certain point and Suzuka. Where else are you going?
So Barcelona, and then we're off to Silverstone. That I am very excited to race in Silverstone. I've heard the track is very, very demanding for drivers physically and also technique. And I'm working on my technique of braking and carrying speed. Like especially the F3 car, it has so much aero and downforce. And coming from karting, that's something I'm learning to learn. I'm trying to learn, trusting the car. Like, one of my biggest issues during the race weekend was trusting the car and learning that turning in with more speed keeps the car more planted to the track. And that means that there is less moments for the car to lose control or to snap. And in my head, I was like, so if I go in faster, the car won't like snap. And in my head I was like, that doesn't sound safe, because like I kept having these moments in the car where I would try to slow it down going into the corner so that it's more safe, but in the end that gave the car more snap oversteer, and it gave a bit more the car was a bit on the edge, because this car has a turbo. So being on and off the throttle means that the turbo is on and off as well, and that really upsets the car a lot. So I was like, Okay, that's new. That's new for
Yeah,
me. I'll
lot to
keep
learn.
that in mind. So, but towards the end, I did start to trust the car more, but obviously a lot to work on, and definitely knowing the engineering side of the turbo and all that stuff and how it works helped me a lot.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's
So
So
incredible.
so yeah, we're off to Silverstone, and then we're off to Paul Rickard, and then
mm,
to Hungary and Japan, and then we're off to Coda.
I
very
definitely know
exciting.
what you mean about trusting the car to obviously nothing like you. I got to do a fun 1 day thing once at Silverstone where I got to drive around, the Formula Silverstone cars, which are,
Yes.
I don't know, probably around sort of Formula 4, a bit less than Formula 4, but I got to drive this bright orange Formula Silverstone car. And every time I came to this corner, I was realizing, oh, actually, I can go faster and faster and faster. And my brain couldn't make sense of it until eventually I realized the weakest thing in this entire system is me. And actually,
No.
I'm probably only pushing the car to 10% of what it can do. And I couldn't get my head around how fast I could put that car through a corner.
That was
Um,
me the whole
and it's,
weekend.
but yeah, no, I think you'll have an amazing time at Silverstone. It's a great, great place.
I'm excited. I am.
Oh, camera is disabled due to slow internet connection. You there?
Aw.
Yeah, he's out. All right, that's fine. So we'll just go. We'll just move on. We'll talk about the actual Formula One race. So did you get a chance to watch it from the track, or were you busy afterwards?
That's the thing about driving alongside Formula One. You're just like so focused on your race because we drive right before they do. So you never really get to watch or to even follow up or keep up. And I think that for me was like, well, one of us shocked because when I because like after the like after a race two, that's when the start of the Formula One race began, and I was just like
Yeah,
there sitting, looking at them. I was like, I just went through that corner. I just
yeah,
drove that corner, and like we're
yeah.
driving the same lines, and I'm like, well, obviously they're driving a better line than we are, but it's just crazy knowing that they're experiencing what we felt, going through that corner, breaking into that corner, like taking the same gears. And
Hmm.
as a fan, as a big, huge Formula One fan, it's such a dream
Hmm.
just being able to
Hmm.
drive in the same circuit as what they're driving, and I got to follow along. I
Yeah,
mean, I tried to keep up as much as I could, and I watched quali and the race, the start, watching the Formula One start. Oh my gosh, like I've never seen Formula One like in live and in person like
yeah,
ever.
yeah.
And when and it's funny because like now, like my first time watching Formula One, I was racing the same time as them, so I'm like,
Mm,
oh my gosh.
yeah. So
And
you
it was sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say
uh
you're a big Formula One fan, and you're also a big Charles Leclerc fan, and he is
yes.
leading the championship for the first time in his career. How do you feel about that?
uh I'm definitely happy. I mean, he's worked really, really hard the past few
Hmm.
years trying to develop his craft and the car as well. And I think the car now is as competitive as it's ever been the past few years.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, we weren't able to take home the win this weekend.
Hmm.
But we gave it. They gave it all their best, and I really saw that he had lots of speed. Qualified pole. One and two Ferrari, but I guess towards the end, the performance started to slow down, and it's tough. It's a tough track, but it's a long year, and there's a lot more racing, a lot more
Yeah.
tracks to race on.
Well,
I
so I
feel
wanted to
like,
ask you. Yeah, Arafat, you can
oh,
go.
sorry, I was going to say, I feel like people that support Ferrari are constantly suffering. And I've never hidden it. I've always been a big Lewis Hamilton fan. That's why I interned at McLaren back in 2008, 2009. And because Lewis isn't in the championship this year, I'm obviously still supporting him. But this year, it looks like it's going to be between Charles and Max. So I'm going to support Charles. I think if Max didn't win last year, maybe I'd support him this year. But because he has the championship already, I'm supporting Charles and Ferrari.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to understand a little bit of that Ferrari suffering of, how they didn't win this race, and I thought they were going to. So I feel it for Charles as well.
It's crazy because we start off the weekend so strong. We always do like FP1, FP2, FP3, quali, pole 1 and 2, and then towards the middle of the race, after like the first pit stop, you start to feel this pain. You just know it's gonna come. And
so
unfortunately, it did.
Well, so how much of that was the team in the car versus the track? Because you're the only one here in this conversation that's driven that track. How much of it was the track is hard to overtake on, the track is hard to catch on? Because it kind of felt like that to me. I don't think that the Red Bull is so much faster than the Ferrari that Charles Leclerc can't catch up to Max Verstappen.
That's the thing. Like for Formula One, it's very hard to keep up on a close distance. Unlike us, we can manage the draft, the dirty air, and everything. But I guess for Formula One, it's a bit tougher for them, especially it is a very tight circuit, and I guess there was towards the last 3 corners where Charles went a bit too wide on the braking and he missed it, and that's sort of the pinpoint where Max got away. I guess it's a tough track, and there's like such a long straight after every sector, after every corners, and especially the 14 and 15, where it's a tight chicane, and after that it's a long straight ahead. So you really need to attack it and make sure that you get a really good exit. And for me, that was one of the toughest part of the track, because it was just so tight. And and one of actually my teammate Juju, she towards I think it was the last corner before the long straight towards the last sector, she hit a curb a bit too much, and her car went straight and she couldn't turn and she hit the wall. So I guess that really shows that it is a tough circuit. It's not easy to be fast on, and it requires a lot of technique. So Charles and Max are very obviously very experienced, and they were both quick. They were like the 2 drivers that was relevantly close to one another during the race. So I do want to give Max a lot of credit. He made a really clean pass, and it's hard to overtake in Miami. It's not an easy track. It's very tight, and it was very clean. So as much as I hate to say it, but it's a well-deserved win.
Do you think that Ferrari can keep the momentum going the entire season?
Yes. I think they're still learning a lot with the car. Charles. It's his first ever season where he's leading everything, like leading the championship. It was pole, and they're very strong.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone can keep up with Charles and Max. I think they're very much on their own race. So we'll see.
It's a long season, and I think you're right. We're just going to have to see how it plays out. And anything from the weekend that really stuck out to you in particular from the race?
From my race weekend or from F1's?
Either race week, just from the whole weekend, yeah.
Well, it was fun. That's for sure. Having Miami as your first ever race was just mind-blowing. Because it was so magical, to be honest. Coming from a fan and living that dream was just crazy. Because during, I think it was a Friday, all the F1 drivers were there. They arrived at Miami, and there was this big opening ceremony, opening party, and the F1 drivers were called to the stage. And we didn't know this. I didn't know this, but they called the W Series drivers as well.
Yeah.
During the opening.
Yeah.
And it was live streamed in the F1 platform, and so basically the whole world on Sky Sports. And we didn't know. I didn't know that was gonna happen. And I was the very first driver to be called out on stage, and all the drivers kept coming. But I was the the academy team was the very first one. Me and Juju was the first ones to come out, and I was just panicking. I was like, I'm so gonna trip. I'm gonna fall. I'm gonna trip. I'm gonna humiliate myself. That's probably how it's gonna turn out. I mean, like in my head, I was really thinking for the worst thing possible because like there was about thousands of people like there. It was like Friday, and it already felt like the race weekend just because of how many people were supporting, how many people were there watching, and it was this big stadium, this big stage, and they called us, and there was this big screen, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed from the whole because we were driving because like we were there, and I was just like, I did my seat fit, I did everything, and I was just like, I'm so not prepared for this. I look terrible, and like thousands of people is gonna watch me, and but it all turned out well. I didn't trip, I didn't embarrass myself, so that's always a good thing.
A bonus, yeah.
But it was such a dream.
The last time you were on our show, you mentioned, just across your karting career that your family had been really, really supportive and helped so much. What do they think about the last 3 weeks that you've had and all these amazing things that you've been doing?
It's crazy because I'm so busy. Like, it's just crazy how my schedule is, like with all the racing and all these things to do. And, so now I really appreciate the free time I have. Like before, back then, I'd always take it for granted whenever I have free time, and now I rarely have it. I really have my me time, my time to relax or have fun or like talk to my family. So whenever I do get a chance to call with my parents, see my dog, see my family, it's always just like the best feeling in the world.
I feel bad now. We're keeping you from your family and your dog.
No, no, you guys are sort of family as well. So it's good. I enjoy talking to you guys.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's such a great feeling. Like especially after the race, after Miami, my parents called me and we were on FaceTime, and I just saw them like crying, so proud because I announced that I was in the top 10 and I scored my first ever points in the W Series in my first ever race, and they were just like crazy, like the whole house, like friends, family, neighbors. They were just like even people that I don't know that were like congratulating me and everything, and it's a great feeling. Like the amount of support that I got in Miami, in the Philippines, and everywhere around the world. All the Filipino people, they were so supportive. They throughout, through thick and thin, and so after the race, we had a fan signing. And the whole line was all Filipino coming to just get my signature, and I was just like,
wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like they brought the Philippine flag and everything, and all these kids, and there was even a point where one of them, the girl fainted because of the heat in Miami. It was just extremely so hot, and I felt so bad that they, had to line up so long and stand in the heat. But yeah, it was a fun experience.
I don't think you should underestimate, because I know you're working so hard. You're training. You're focusing on your own career and your own driving so much. But these other things, a long time ago when I was your age, that's when I started watching Lewis Hamilton, and it was a big deal because Formula One was generally all like white guys, and to see someone different when I was your age was a huge thing to me. And just like that now, there's going to be so many little girls and so many Asian people that are going to be so inspired by what you're doing. I think you should be really, really proud of that.
I mean, I still I kind of like, I never really think of how much I've brought racing up to the Asian community. They would tell me, I started watching Formula One because of you. I started watching W Series. I started doing and you inspired me so much. Like in my head, I never really thought of how big it big effect that I have on other people, and it was such like mind blowing knowing that there's so many people watching and supporting, and I get to inspire them to pursue what they want, regardless of the race, ethnicity, gender, even. So it's a crazy feeling, and I feel like I feel even though like I feel empowered as a woman knowing that I get to inspire other people and other
Mm.
young girls
Mm-hmm.
to live out their dreams and to push and pursue their passion.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
That is amazing, and so we've held you long enough, Bianca. I'm so grateful that you're able to come speak
Nah,
with
it's
us.
I just want to show you these things. We've got little tracks. So this is Miami, where you just drove, and this is Barcelona, where you're going to go drive. And I can see behind you on the wall, you've got Laguna Seca.
Yep, all the
And then
racetracks.
the other ones, there's Watkins Glen there. There's all the
Yep.
other American ones. Looks amazing.
Mm.
So just want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Little Prince 3D, who print these for us. If you want to get your hands on one, make sure you visit their site. We'll link it to the show notes here, and use the discount code SLOWPITSTOP. And yeah, Bianca will be sending you some as well, so that you can add them to the
I'd love
collection
to.
behind you.
I would love to.
Arafat, I had a dream last night. Well, not last night, a couple nights ago, that so many people bought those 3D printed tracks that Little Prince 3D sent us more free tracks to give away. So, if you're listening and you haven't bought your track yet, make my dream come true and buy yourself a track from Little Prince 3D.
But Bianca, thank you so much for joining us today. We will be watching the
Thank
W
you for
Series
having
in
me.
Barcelona. We will be supporting you 100%, and we're so excited to see where your career goes next. And we hope we get to chat to you again later this year.
Thank you guys for listening to all my stories. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for joining us, Bianca. All right.
Good
Bye.
night. Bye-bye.